Hi guys, a very good evening to all of you who have joined us today. I hope first of all you guys are doing really well and are staying safe in whatever part of country or world you are from. I can see some people who have joined us outside India as well, so warm welcome to them as well. So this is our fourth chapter of the online webinars that we have been doing it since the lockdown began, and today we will be talking everything about. Uh, Driving growth via product innovation with zero marketing budget. To start off with, we have today Mr. Ankit Gupta, who is taking after growth products at Myntra. If I have to talk a bit about him, he has been in the ecosystem for quite some time, and he is a seasoned digital executive, growth hacker, and strategist currently working with Myntra. Uh, Overall, he has worked on different venues and different verticals, but his expertise lies in growth hacking via app marketing, e-commerce strategies, and growth hacks, product-led growth, and so on. So without taking much of your time now, I'll hand it over to Ankit, and Ankit can take up the session. Just a few instructions before we go ahead with this session, that in case you have any questions, please write it down in the Q&A section below. We will be taking each and every questions towards the end, one by one. And in between, there would be a slide wherein Ankit would like you guys to interact with us, or maybe in terms of typing down in the chat section, or maybe I'll try to give you an access wherein you all can talk as well. So looking forward to your interaction and collaboration. And yeah, over to you, Ankit. All the best.
Yeah, thank you, Ayush, for the nice introduction, nice words. I'll quickly summarize my experience. I have worked in India and Germany, and my experience has been into product management. Twice in my career, I also tried to start my own company. And as a hobby, I really love to travel. But now it looks like it will be an year before I can actually go outside and then travel. So that's about me. I'll quickly move to the slide and agenda for today. Um, I will be speaking about my experience with product-led growth. What is it? How is it different from other areas of business and doing things? Probably it should take somewhere around 30 to 40 minutes. And at the end, probably I will take all the Q&A. During my this webinar, I will share my experience of visiting and meeting a lot of growth leaders in Bay Area, and based on that, my learnings and the principles for growth hacking as well as product innovations, plus some of the success stories of things we did at Myntra, which really worked well for us. So that will be the overall session about. And yeah, I mean, at the end of the session, I will also share my coordinates. So feel free to reach out to me for clarifications later on as well. So to start with, it's a standard definition. What is product-led growth? So it's in short, it's a go-to-market strategy where it's a way to reach out to your customers, where the product itself defines the customer journey of acquisition, conversion, and retention. This is a pretty standard definition you can read through internet. But the next slides are more interesting. So how did a go-to-market strategy evolve over a period of time? So one more thing, I think during the session, I will be taking example from both B2B, B2C. So to engage and keep all the audience satisfied, so that most of the questions are answered and they can relate to what I speak about. So if you take a typical B2B example, SAP and Oracle, who started somewhere in 1990s, they started the go-to-market evolution with very sales-led approach. Product was already built in siloed and the founders were ready. Now they hired a bunch of sales guys who would go and say, hey, we got a nice product these other companies are using. Why don't you also use it? This will solve your productivity problems. This will improve your efficiency, etc., etc. So the entire process was very sales-led. Now the next set of companies came in, which were Salesforce and Tableau, for example, where they had a very solid product, but they always wanted product managers or product to go along with the sales team. So that's the phase which I call as product assisted, which was driven majorly by customer expectation, and a piece of the product or capabilities were showcased to the user before they actually go and fully invest in it. And the third, which is the topic for today, is product-led, which is the most recent advancement. Dropbox, Box, Slack, all B2B or so many other B2B companies are example of successful strategy of product-led growth. What does it mean? It means that your product itself become the lever. It creates those viral loops. It brings on the network effects, so that more and more users keep on coming back to use the platform without you actually have to spend a lot of marketing budgets. And that's why the second row itself distribute and showcase that the amount of marketing budgets you have to put in for the strategy is much lesser compared to the other two strategies. Now, to give you an example of Slack as well. So Slack did spend certain amount of money in PR strategy, so that the people and their famous tagline, email killer, was actually given by one of the PR agency which they hired. So it's not like it's a zero marketing spends, but it's minimal and very different from the other product assisted and sales led approach which existed in system. Now, let me speak about key differences for product-led growth. So this is the typical product life cycle. If you see marketing team bring more customers, then in the journey there are sales team and customer success teams which get involved at the different stages of a customer life cycle.
Sorry to interrupt you, Ankit, over here. I guess your slide is stuck. We can still see your first slide itself. We can't see any further.
Oh, shit.
Just
okay. Should I reshare?
Yeah, maybe you can just turn off the screen share and then turn it on once again.
Okay.
Just yeah, now it's maybe you can just try once again changing it.
I'll probably present it. Is it
Yeah.
still visible?
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
Which slide can you see? What is the title?
Right now it's GTM evolution. Fourth slide.
Okay, so that's not right. Can you still see this slide? Product-led growth key difference?
No.
Let me share the desktop. Let's see how it works.
Right now I can see product-led growth key differences.
Okay.
Now yes, it's changing now. Yeah.
Fine.
Okay.
Sorry guys. Yeah. Okay. So to give you brief, what I spoke about was this slide. This is the GTM evolution over a period of time. It started with sales-led, when we moved to product-assisted, and then product-led, which is the topic for today. And I am giving some reference examples for each of these. Okay, now I'll speak about product-led growth, which is the key difference. I hope the slide is now visible, and the title says traditional acquisition model. Is it visible with a lot of green?
Yes, yeah, it's visible.
Okay, so the traditional approach in product lifecycle is marketing team, sales team, and customer success teams interact with the customer at different time of the user journey. And typically, a lot of times, they also don't share notes. They don't, the person at customer success team do not know what was the interaction the customer had before buying the product. And that's why I feel the product experience is not optimal, or it's broken sometimes. And this is the product-led growth strategy, which suggests that as soon as a customer interacts or sees your product for the first time, the product team comes in to the picture and takes care of the entire life cycle. So this example is more suitable for a B2B approach. Now let me also give you or try to explain in a B2C environment how it will look. So this is a pirate funnel, A cube, R cube funnel. I'm sure you would have, many of you would have read or heard about it. And typically in a standard setup, marketers involve and contribute more on the first two steps, which is awareness and acquisition. And the next set of A and triple R are managed by a different set of people who are responsible for conversion and repeat rate and different teams within the organization. In product-led growth, or a growth hacker takes care of all those customer journeys together. They do not look for an individual step in this funnel. They use this only to understand where the customers are facing trouble, where to prioritize their features or changes. But that's the key, another key difference. So you do not just focus on the upper part of the funnel, which is SEO and getting more customers to the platform or paid installs, but you look at end-to-end journey of a customer. So that is the key difference. Now, the next slide I will cover are the 5 key tenets of product-led growth. And these are based upon my personal meetings with growth leaders in different technology companies. So last year I went to San Francisco and attended a few conferences and also attended a popular course called Reforge, and met growth teams in all these companies: Netflix, Facebook, Uber, Airbnb, Pinterest. And a lot of these are famous for their growth models in the B2C environment. And based on my learnings and meeting all the growth leaders, these are the 5 tenets of product-led growth. I hope the slide is visible now.
Yes, it's visible. It's visible.
Okay. So a few of these tenets I will go a little deeper, and rest of it I would cover as a process in the coming slides. So first tenet or the pillar for product-led growth is fast pace incremental changes. So a growth hacker or product-led growth person do not focus on or love with the feature itself. They enjoy the journey or the process. So instead of being stuck with a problem like I have to go and revamp the next set of checkout experience, probably the person will focus on, oh, this step, the drop off is highest, let's say 60%. So my chances of improving the pain point or reducing the pain point is much higher this year. And let me go back and see what the customers are saying. So you look back to customer verbatim in call centers. If you're a B2C company, you look for customer verbatim in your Play stores and see what are the specific pain points people are highlighting in that particular area. And then use that to make incremental changes. So you do not invest in, it's a revamping the entire checkout. You say, okay, on the cart page, the drop off is highest. And probably the most common problem which customers are telling me about is that they do not know that there was a charge for shipping fee. So this is, and you will specifically try to solve one problem and then try to evaluate if it really worked or not. The second tenet of product-led growth is a pod structure team. Now, what do you mean by pod? Pod, by definition, is a self-sufficient team which is aligned to a core success metrics, and it does not necessarily depend on bandwidth or coordination time losses, because all the different teams which require to make that metrics successful are available within the team. So in a typical team will look like a product manager or a group of product managers, engineers, engineering manager, design folks, includes a UX researcher, analyst who really are good with numbers, as well as somebody from the business acumen. So all of these come together to solve one key problem for business. I will give you a hint about the key problem, but majorly they are defined by North Star metrics for the organization. And that is the third key tenet for product-led growth. So it's very important to have your own defined, agreed upon North Star metrics. Having one single North Star metrics is very important for cross-team collaboration. It brings all the team together. At the same time, it's very important to know the relationship of North Star metrics with multiple secondary metrics. To give you an example, somebody's a North Star metrics can be monthly retention, but monthly retention can also be achieved by getting more new acquired customers who pay you month on month. It can also be achieved by secondary metrics like number of users who completed titles in a month. So each North Star metrics is then further distributed across pods as their success metrics. The fourth tenet is experimentation culture. And I will go a little deeper on this as well, but I'm sure everybody is aware of A/B testing and what are the benefits of doing an A/B test. The last tenet is user centricity, or also known as first principle. Always and always in your journey, keep user at the center. Um, think that, okay, you are the user, would you be using this product or feature, or try to give it to a few people around you and your friends and family and see how they behave. If they are getting stuck at certain point, you should probably look for changes in that particular aspect. So first principles and applying that in the user journey is the fifth key tenet. Now, in the coming slide, I will probably and go a little deeper on a few of them. So first one is North Star metrics. So this slide gives you an indication of North Star metrics of different B2C companies. And I will probably not read about it, but and I'm sure you can see it through in your screen. But one thing which you see common in all the North Star metrics of all these companies is they are at user level. So all your analytics, all your calculations also point toward user centricity. Your A/B test results should be evaluated at a user level. Second key thing which you see in the slide is there is a defined time period of success. So for Airbnb, it is as high as an year. For WhatsApp, it's the number of messages sent per user per day. So depending on the organization setup and your company and agreement within the team, and with the defined natural frequency of using a particular customer, you come up with this particular threshold or time duration. But this is typically how a North Star metrics would look like for your organization. And taking specific example of Netflix, where I met them, retention uh, or monthly retention is their North Star metrics. But then they distribute these metrics into three different pods within their organization. And one of the pod focuses entirely on the acquisition part, from the sign up screen to the time they make the first payment. And that's when they call a customer to be acquired. The second pod focuses specifically upon number of titles completed by individual user in a particular month. So they strongly believe that if a user is not um, completing the titles in a month, that means there is a high propensity to churn. That means we are not able to either surface the right set of content, or we are the we are not good with personalization. So either our content is bad or our way of surfacing the content is bad. And the third pod specifically focus on getting the customers back on platform. So that's how the Netflix team or growth team is structured. And the North Star metrics is all the retention or monthly retention. Then they further distribute in different pods, this particular North Star metric. Now this is the part probably I will open for Q&A, not for Q&A, but probably some feedback. So this is a question to you guys in the session. Let's say we are launching a feature on April, and the core metrics to evaluate the success or failure is click-through rate, right? And after the feature was launched, this is how the feature went. To give you, yeah. So I would like to know From you guys, what will you say? Was this feature successful or not?
Just a moment. I've asked everyone to reply over chat. At the same time, let me give them an option to, yeah. You can see people have started replying over.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe you can, yeah, reply back to them. They can listen to you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Come on, guys. Share your views. So time duration for evaluation for, let's say, 2 months.
Dishant, what I can do is one by one, I can give you the access to speak. So Dishant, here you go. You can, yeah.
I think it's just a simple yes or no answer that you can also type in. Um, I just want to hear from you what you guys think. With this information, would you say it was successful or not? Okay. Um, yeah, I think I will. So my question was, let's say I launched a feature in April, and before I launched the feature, this is how the graph looked like. And after I launched the feature, this is how it went. So would you call this a successful feature or a failure? And the key success metric is click-through rates. Okay, so I think I got enough responses, and thank you everybody for responding. Let me show you another graph, and which will probably answer the question. So the blue line is the world without this feature. So let's assume the feature was launched on Paytm and just before demonetization. And I'm seeing the impact of that particular feature, and it kept on growing. The CTR kept on growing. However, because of seasonality or external factor, the actual impact could have been even bigger. Now, the reason I specifically asked this question to you folks to showcase to you and make you understand the importance of an A/B test. So without doing a proper A/B test, like during this entire tenure, 50% of the users or X percentage of the users should keep on seeing the historical behavior, and only the rest of the users should be exposed to the new feature. And A/B test is the only important or the only way to answer this particular question, whether this particular feature was successful or not. In most of the cases, obviously, there will be situations where you cannot do A/B testing because of certain constraint, but this is a critical tenet of product-led growth, that as much as possible, you should always A/B test your feature for continuous learning. So that's the key slide or key part from this section. Now I'll speak about process for product innovation or product-led growth, based upon my meetings again with product companies in Bay Area, and something which we also applied at Myntra as well. So the typical process would start with ideation and data analysis, what it would look like. So I would invite leaders and team members from all the functions of organization or major functions of organization. So a commerce company would have category managers, a revenue function, marketing guide, product head, sales and support team members, as well as analytics and design members. So all different teams would come together and would be showcased certain user funnels. So let's say we present them, this is the funnel for our user journey in our app. The second step I would tell them is, today our focus will be on improving one particular area of the app, let's say checkout, and tell them everybody has to come up with reasons why this particular drop-offs which we are seeing, or any possible opportunities to further improve the conversion. Then we distribute all the different teams into groups which are random in nature, and um, they still represent different functions together. And we then take them through different cohorts or different dimensions. So for example, we show the same distribution of funnel for men and women, for different tier cities, different age groups, and different, let's say, language profiles, and then say them, okay, then come up with certain hypotheses. Why do you feel the users are behaving this way? At the end of this meeting, we come up with a long list of idea backlogs, or things to experiment upon. The next stage in the journey is to actually go back to drawing table, and all product managers in the pod go and say, these, out of all these 10 are junk, and these few really make sense. So go and work with UX designers to create a low fidelity mockup. At this stage, product managers work with UX designers and UX researchers if needed to refine the hypothesis and then come up with low fidelity mock. What do you mean by that? Is the end goal is a presentation where we showcase this is the current state or the control, and this is how the feature will look after we made the change. Then we go with this presentation at a regular rhythm. So for example, 2 weeks to different people within the organization, which we call as a review committee. Now, review committee should include leaders from different functions, product functions of different areas. It should include head of design. It should include head of revenue, head of category if needed. And all of them come together to say whether this hypothesis is valid or not, what are the primary metrics for this feature or change, and what are the secondary metrics we should definitely assure should not go or increase or look forward. For example, if you're making a change and creating urgency, probably it should not increase or entice user to start repeating or returning those items. If I am highlighting something like coupons, it should not end up increasing my gross margins. So if I distribute too many coupons, I will take a hit on gross margins. So these are the typical outcome of this meeting. And based on the feedback from different teams, we would showcase them that, okay, these are the selected few product ideas which we are going to experiment now. The third step is going to our engineering team and discussing each and every idea, and then prioritizing from the backlog. We use a framework called RICE, R-I-C-E, which stands for Reach, Impact, Confidence, and Effort. This particular methodology helps us identify which features to go and develop first, to uh, to see whether the experiment has a ability to go be successful or reaching the statistically significance outcome or not. The last stage in the process is actually going for the experimentation and launching the experiment and seeing whether uh, the results are going the right direction or not. This is the stage, let's say 1 week after the launch, we make sure that we are not impacting some of the defensive metrics, like for example, bounce rate should not go up, the page load time should not go up. If they are going fine, we probably run the experiment for longer. And typically we have already predefined durations for which an experiment should run to reach statistical significance. Now, statistical significance combined with A/B test are two key critical aspects. There will be a lot of times where you will see aberrations in the outcome. Suddenly you will see a spike and 8% jump in control versus test. And that can be very well just because of an outlier coming in one of the buckets. But if you reach and wait for statistical significance, that statistical significance piece will take care of any aberrations like this and outliers or certain duration when there was a seasonality impact. So it's very important to wait for statistical significance as well during experimentation. Now, the last stage is analysis and learning from the experiments. Um, in this stage, we look for whether our initial hypothesis was validated or not validated. If it is validated, we will probably build upon that. So for example, if the initial hypothesis was to clean up the coupon screen because it's too complex and that really worked, now I'm going to further improve the on the coupons. So let's say the earlier I was showing both eligible and non-eligible coupons on coupon page. And as a part of an experiment, I removed all the non-eligible coupons and it turned out to be successful. Then the next stage or next step in my journey would be to look for each and every coupons which are still eligible. For example, in a bucket, in a bag size, there can be 3 coupons which are applicable, but only one of them gives the best discount. So probably we should showcase only the one which gives the best discount. There can be a possibility that users see coupons which are shown so that your bag value increases, so that the number of items per order increase or average order value increase. And then we would evaluate from data whether really those metrics are changing or not. And based on that, we launch the next set of iterate features. This entire journey typically takes in a product-led growth team 6 to 8 weeks. So from ideation to launching and rolling out to customers. Now I'll briefly speak about some success indicators by following this process at Myntra. We are a 25-member team, and within the span of 24 months since I joined, and we incrementally kept on adding members. So helped in grooming and hiring the PMs in my team, analysts in the team, and growing up the right set of engineers. Over the period of time, we are now 25 members team. And this short span of time of 24 months, we have actually evaluated 800 product ideas, which were given across teams. And when we go and do these brainstorming sessions, one of the key advantages, people are more collaborative. They feel aligned to the ideas because they feel it's their idea. And then the cross collaboration team efforts also improve. So it's easy to convince them to support features and experiments. Out of these 800, 400 were actually presented to the core committee with low fidelity mockups. And more than 200 features have already gone live on our platform, and we have experimented to evaluate whether they were successful or not. So in the short span of time, we have already delivered more than 200 features. That's close to 15 to 20 features a month, which is at least 5x of any other team I've heard about across organizations. So as a product organization, I feel proud that we deliver a lot of more number of features or experiments. The other key thing to talk about is out of these 200 features, almost 25 to 30% of them reach statistical significance in improving our success metrics, which was North Star metric, without impacting the defensive metrics. So there would be no experiment would be hitting our bottom line. So there will be no experiment which will go live, which will have a negative impact on our gross margins. There will be no experiment which will go live, which has a negative impact on increase of call volume. There will be no experiment which will go live, which will eventually increase the return rate of a product. So even after applying those guardrails, we were able to achieve almost like 25 to 30% success from our features. Now, what this also means that for every one successful feature, there were 3 which failed. So that means I was wrong 75% of the time. And for a growth hacker mindset, for a growth mindset, this is a very critical piece. It's okay to accept that 75% times you will go wrong. I'm sure you would have heard Jeff Bezos also speaking about it. I am okay to go wrong 3 out of 4 times, but one time which I will go correct is what will make me successful. The same thing happens with us. So every experiment which goes negative really makes us happy. That fine, then okay, it was I was wrong, but now I have to do exactly opposite of this, and that means it will go in positive direction. So that's a very important piece of learning. At the same time, there is nothing worse than an inconclusive outcome. So what I mean by inconclusive outcome? So let's say the experiment was successful in increasing average revenue per user by 0.3%, but it did not reach statistical significance. The statistical significance was somewhere around 60% or 70%. It did not reach my threshold of 90%. Now, if I see the results like this, that is what makes me really worried. I don't know what is the next step, whether my hypothesis can be called a success or a failure. And that also will happen in your journey of product-led growth or experimentation or growth hacking. And at that moment, you will have to take sometimes a judgmental call. You will may have to look for a certain more extensively secondary metrics, which you may have ignored initially. And those are the indicators which will give you to decide next steps. Now I'll speak about from my experience and success stories, what are the key 6 themes which really help drive the growth for the organization. So first is remind users about the core benefits across their journey. So if a new user is coming on a platform, remind them the key benefits at different stages. So usually what we do is remind them on the first screen, and across the journey, we forget to do that. But it's important to keep doing that across the journey. So in a few features, we observed that for new users, it's important to highlight on the list pages too, that this is the benefits you will get from the first purchase. Let's free delivery, additional coupons and discounts. You will get free try and buy. As soon as the user reaches, let's say the product page, we also highlight them. We really take care of our products really well. So each product goes through 7-step quality check. Each product is genuine and brand authorized. We also tell them that, okay, it's easy and fast to return a product. And then let's say the person has reached to the checkout stage, and we then highlight them a more relevant information that checkout is safe. You can also use COD. We also highlight them that you can actually return the product in 30 days. So these are the key things, although sometimes we feel, okay, these are the points which every user would know, but it's okay to remind them across the journey and multiple times in different ways. That works. Second aspect is scarcity and urgency. Creating a FOMO, telling the users that, okay, this offer lasts only X hours. I'm sure you would have seen on Amazon telling you that order within next 2 hours to get the product by tomorrow or by Wednesday. Indicators like this really help users to convert faster. Otherwise, traditionally, every one of us, including users, have a tendency to delay the decision. Indicators like this, telling them only few left or only X left, really help them make the decision faster. The third theme, which really works for the users, is telling them anything extra which they get. So loyalty points. So when you say and showcase them, you pay 400 rupees, you can actually also showcase that 10% of this money you will get back as a cashback, or 10% of these things you will get back as points, which you can use later on. So that's something which also worked, and you can communicate at different touch points, not just at the checkout, but probably much further up in the journey as well. The other example I would give is showing the key benefit. So usually, I'm sure if you read about different psychology and pricing, uh, there's a famous saying that never say anything is free, always show the value. So we used to say that, okay, shipping is free, but when we started showing them, okay, the shipping is not free, but it's free worth rupees 149, that really uh, resulted in better conversions or better uptake in the journey. The fourth part is celebrating the positive psych. So there are elements which really create a positive psych, things where you highlight these are the core benefits. So simple elements of let's say celebration. So using language like "yay, you got something," using confetti whenever a person applies coupon. So talking about Swiggy, when you apply a coupon, they celebrate it, that "yay, you saved this much." And this is what I mean by saying celebrate elements that create positive psych, so that they reinforce a person's belief in the platform and in the system. The fifth key point is a simple and concise copy. When building product features, copywriters play a very important role. It's very important to communicate uh, the, the key promises, the benefits in as simple words as possible. So there were pieces in Myntra journey which were very verbose. We tried to make that simple, and that really worked for us. And the last theme specifically is around reducing the negative psych. So what I mean is, I'm sure there will always be elements which we cannot fulfill, or service failure cases. So for example, if you're not eligible to get for certain services, probably you should try to minimize those points which create friction. Or if you have those points in your journey, probably give them lower priority. First things, highlight the things which you are getting, and then probably talk about and speak about things which the user may not get. Things like reduced return window, reduced service offering like try and buy. So try to keep uh, the elements of service failures as low as possible. So these are 6 key themes which you guys can go back and ponder upon, and probably apply in all of your products and features, which will definitely will give you success in your experimentation. So with that, I will end the session. These are my coordinates. You can reach out to me on this channel, and I will open the session now for Q&A. Thank you, guys.
Thanks a lot, Ankit. It was a really informative session. Uh, Thanks a lot. So I can see that we already have a few questions coming in from the people, and I also have a set of questions that our community people have asked over different social media channels. So first of all, I would like to ask all the attendees over here, if they have any question, please start shooting it in the Q&A section below, so that we can take it up one by one. And right now, I'll take the opportunity to go first. So. A person from our community has asked us on Instagram, and he wants to ask Ankit, what qualities should a product team have that is focused on driving growth process?
So yeah, I can give a very generic answer, like it should have a growth mindset. But typically, I would say the person should have 2 or 3 key attributes. First,
Okay.
a structured thought process, something, an ability to break it between if-else statements. So if the entire checkout has to be improved, which is the
Okay.
one I should prioritize first? This one, because it has the highest drop off. If this entire screen has to be revamped, which is the key element within the screen which needs to be revamped. Okay, I have 5 set of verbatim. If I change this particular one, it will take me 2 months or a lot of coordination. But if I go for this one, it's easier to convince everybody. Everybody would agree to that. And if I, let's say, identify that shipping is that problem, what is one single change which I can do to evaluate whether my thought process is correct or not? So
Right.
that is what I mean by a structured thought process and ability to break a problem in a multiple if-else statements. So that's very critical for any member in a growth team. Second, they should be focused on the outcome, uh, with a success metrics in mind. and not love, let's say, jargons. I would be able to solve it by a sophisticated AI algorithm. They should not fall prey to those jazzy things. If I really
Yeah.
make it, everybody will love personalized and all. They should be happy with identifying those small wins and going and testing that and incremental. If they really have to go in that journey of personalization, they should
Mhm.
probably start with customizing it with the largest set of users, as broad as gender, men and women. There can be only
Makes sense.
two,
Yeah.
and then you try to solve for them and see if really is helping or not. Then you go ahead and build for everybody in Pune and Kanpur and Nagpur.
Yeah.
That's a different journey altogether. But you should have ability to break it down. Then also focus on North Star metrics. This is my metric and what will impact it. And third key aspect is communication. This entire growth hacking process or product-led growth is a very team and multi-team disciplinary exercise. So you will have to convince a lot of different stakeholders, and in
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
process also speak to a lot of people. So communication, concise and precise communication, really is required. So these are the three top skills I would say the person should have.
Got it. Moving on to the Q&A tab, Praveen wants to ask why are the metrics called North Star metrics? Generic one.
so it's like, since childhood we have been calling, we have been taught about North Pole, right? One single North Pole which you can see in the night, and you
Yeah.
know that that's in north side.
Yeah.
Even if you're not able to see others, you see Saptarishi, and at the tail of it you can go and see North Star at the, and that was the, I think, the nemesis of calling it a North Star metrics, so that the entire organization can always look up to this metric and say whether this change or my strategy really met that North Star metric or not. I think that was the origin for North Star.
If I'm not wrong, Sean Ellis was the one who coined this thing,
Correct.
or somebody else?
Yes. Yeah, you're
Sean
correct.
Ellis.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so the next question is from Subhash. He wants to ask which top three tools would you recommend to do A/B testing on website and app? How do you write the problem statement for any growth experiment? Two different questions. You can take it one by one.
So the first one, I would say the main tool, and it should be one tool, is where you actually can run an experiment or A/B test. Uh, Larger organizations build their own internal tools like Flipkart, Myntra, Netflix, and smaller organizations use other tools like Firebase, Optimizely, etc. Uh, to do A/B tests.
Got it.
Um, that that's first tool to run the experiment, and the second set of tool which I would suggest is the reporting tools, where you can actually drill down on the experiment outcome.
Yeah.
This was the primary metrics, this was the, let's say, the change in control, and you also can plot, let's say, test and see what was the variance in each of them.
Yeah.
So these are the two typical tools. I will not name or select a few of them, but these two tools are very important to in the entire journey.
Perfect.
Uh,
The
the
second
sec-
question was how do you write the problem statements for any growth experiment?
I mean, the writing a problem statement is not very different from any other writing problem statement. We start with a user pain point, and if needed, probably added certain data points to it, which validates that it is a problem statement. Probably validated by primary or secondary research, if possible, or a UX study.
Mhm.
Then you bring down to the solution part, that this is how I'm going to solve this problem. And phase one, I'm going to do this. Phase two, I'm going to do this. And these are the metrics which I'm going to evaluate as a process. So this is a typical journey, I would say.
Got it. The next question is from Ketki, and she wants to ask, can urgency also lead to fake peaks, especially on purchases that can get returned later?
Correct. Yeah, it can. And that's why things like these have defensive metrics, urgency, FOMO, it may um, increase your spike your return rate. So for example, if you are a B2B company and you created a fake FOMO, and you typically have a freemium model, probably those users will never become a paid customer because they just wanted in the rush they signed up for it. Yes, and hence we have a lot of defensive metrics to be evaluated whether this was a good thing to do or not, or this was a genuine or ethical way to solve it or not.
Got it. The next question is a big one. It's from Rutviz. Hey Ankit, I am a co-founder in an early age startup. Need to understand one thing as I am responsible for growth for my organization, but we have divided our product and growth in two separate division. Would that be a problem, or should I take care of growth and product too? Uh,
Okay. So, so short answer would be, I think it's okay to divide your team into two parts. Till the time you follow this MECE approach, a mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive. So both the teams, so because growth can be defined in multiple ways, right? You can say revenue growth is my goal, or the attestation of cancellations or increasing the repeat rate is also my goal to give.
yeah,
So for example, one of the charter of one of the team can be conversion optimization, and other one can focus on retention. So your North Star still can be monthly retention, but individually they can focus on different aspects. So I gave an example of Netflix, for example. They have monthly retention as North Star metrics, but they have three different pods who are responsible for chasing their own success metrics, which are linked to the North Star metrics for them.
got it. The next question is from Utkarsh. He wants to ask, can you please share the ways to engage more customers in research program?
Uh, so I think it's difficult for me to answer directly without knowing the problem. So, for example, I don't understand what is a research program. What does the product look like, feel like, who are typical customers. So I'm not sure if I can answer that question with this limited set of information. Sorry.
Got it. I have got one question, and this was being asked by one of the members over Instagram. Again, what is the biggest myth you have heard about product growth and you feel it is?
So I would say the biggest myth is one big bang change will increase your North Star metrics by 15%. I made one change which really improved my North Star metrics by 10%, 15%. So that is one biggest myth, I would say.
And you have seen people agreeing to that and working around that.
I mean, I have seen people quoting this,
Uh-huh.
but
Okay.
whether people accepted that or not, that's a different or debatable thing.
Perfect. The next question is by Sumit, and he wants to ask, won't hidden information, unclear negative information impact repeatability?
Correct. So I think this is very similar to the other question around
Yeah.
FOMO. So it's not about ever hiding the information. It's just that what you highlight more. To give you a more practical example, in life and in your journey as a product manager, probably you would have failed 80% of the time. But when you go for an interview, probably you would call out those success metrics. Like I was able to increase the numbers by X to Y in short span of time. If he asks or the person asks, you will say, however, in this process, I also learned. You will not call it probably a failure. And you will say, okay, I learned 80% times, 80% times I was wrong, and those helped me build upon those. So it's
Yeah.
just how you convey. It's not that, okay, you hide it and don't show it. It's a small factor of form. So when you solve a problem, there are two typical directions. So one is form, the other is function. So function is a typical way. Okay, I take this journey and A to B, A 1 plus 2 is equal to 3. So that is function. But the way you communicate to the user is about form. When you design a
Yeah.
change, both form and function are important and equally important. If I have to communicate, you got free shipping or you got X number of discount, I can simply write it in same color as other colors in the description. Or I can say, celebrate that when you get this discount, there are certain confetti which come. This particular information is highlighted in different color, and these are the things which I mean to say when I say probably use different ways to communicate the same information. Don't hide it,
Um,
but communicate it in a different way.
Got it. The next question, feel free to, if you don't mind, like if you don't want to answer this question, it's fine. Why prices change after being added to cart and Myntra? As a customer, I feel being cheated for this. Why is it done for?
So I think this is not a feature; it's a bug. So a
Okay.
lot of times, I'm sure you're seeing this in more in the recent past, and this is not expected behavior. The reason it happens is there are technical challenges, especially recently when we have to categorize our entire catalog as essential and non-essential,
Yeah.
and the definition of essential also keeps on revising from government side.
Right.
And there is a process which we call as indexing on if you know about solar.
Yeah.
So each product has to go through that cycle, and during this process there are times when, let's say, index was 50% done on 10 servers and you saw one price, and then when you reach to the back page, the rollout of that particular price reached to 100%, and then it
Oh,
start to reflect. uh, it's never um, intent of Myntra to have an unhappy experience. We debated for a long time to not add additional taxes and GST at the end of funnel. And if you're a loyal Myntra customer, you would have seen now
yeah.
we have stopped charging additional taxes. So I'm sorry if you would have faced this trouble, but that's never the intent.
Got it. Again, this is an interesting question, and Hiran wants to ask: in a scenario like COVID, completely unplanned, where A/B testing is not feasible and you need to act fast and first, how will you design the flow of experiment? How are you going to estimate the success and failure rate?
Some parts of your statement I agree, some parts I don't. So I don't understand why you would not do an A/B test.
Hmm.
You can still do if so. For example, if you have to communicate that if you're a Zomato or Swiggy and you have to communicate that uh, I am doing a contactless delivery, right? And you have identified two different designs which really help understand the function better or the form better. So first of all, everybody would agree that, okay, yes, we should go live, but you can still A/B test how you are communicating. So design A versus design B, which is the design people are clicking more, which is the design after reading of that communication, they went ahead and order something. So that you can still A/B test. So nobody is saying that, okay, don't launch it because it's COVID, and everybody will encourage and would want to have a better version of the change going live.
Got it.
So look for opportunities where you can do A/B testing. There will always be times when it's critical. For example, COVID, and you really have to communicate that you have now contactless delivery. But you can still experiment on different design options. You can still experiment on different copies which you can use or imageries which you use. That also adds a lot of value.
Got it. So this next question is something that I am looking forward how you answer this, because I have been working into the growth space for quite some time and I have heard people asking this. I would like to know your approach toward this question. So Rutvez wants to ask that any tips or tricks for growth for early age startup for awareness and acquisition pre-launch?
So I think first is how do you probably establish product market fit? How do you spend your time, and what percentage of you spend your time with your tentative customers? So if you're a B2C customers, you should probably at least spend 10 to 15% of your time just to speaking to more and more customers
Yeah.
and trying to establish what are their pain points. Um, that is one key aspect which a lot of people fail at. They start to speak to lesser and lesser number of people, and and as the company grows, they become farther and farther from the customers. So that is one critical piece that we should do definitely in your growth journey. Speak to your customers, read their reviews, read reviews of your competitors to learn from them. um, Second, I would say is probably have that mindset of experimenting. So, and not just with the small things. If you see large organizations have experimented with entire business models. Uber Eats is an entire experimentation, right, which failed. Ola tried to get into and purchase Food Panda for a big amount of money, and it failed. Almost all of it failed. They different aspects of business require different kind of experimentation and bets, and that is a second key aspect you should probably learn from people. It's a lot of times the bets which you will take will go wrong, and it's okay to learn from them and move ahead.
Got it. The next question is, in smaller teams, is one product manager sufficient to start with?
Even in a bigger team, one product manager is sufficient. There's no clear definition of how many product
How
managers
many?
can there. Yeah, so it depends on how what is the, if you feel that you're overburdened, and then that's the time you should probably ask
Okay.
your manager that, okay, I need somebody else to help me with. um, or if you are going in different trajectories, so if somebody is focusing on conversion only, the other person can focus on retention. um, or if the organization say you have been doing it phenomenally well, now I instead of 5 features a month, I want you to deliver 10 features a month.
Then,
And that's the time you look for more people. Otherwise, there is one person is enough. I think 8 people, 10 people were able to build the entire WhatsApp. So I'm sure they had only one PM.
okay, perfect. So Ankit, do you agree to this statement that product-led growth focuses on empathy for the customer?
Yeah, I mean, first principle, customer centricity is one of the key 5 tenets. And I agree that it focuses on that. It also focuses on 4 other aspects which are equally important.
Yeah, got it. Next question is from Shalja, and I guess Shalja has played it smart. She has written it down everything in just one question. So let me read it out for you. Hi Ankit, thanks for your time. Please find my questions below. In a really early stage startup, B2C FMCG, that is looking out to raise their seed funding with almost zero funds at disposal, what are the key elements that can work in your favor to acquire new customers? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that looks like a business strategy than a
Yes.
growth
So
hacking question.
it's been followed by two, three more questions. So feel free. Otherwise, we can take it another way.
Yeah, so I would say read something about how Beardo and WOW companies, these are the few companies which grew. I was fortunate to speak to, I was speaking in one of the conferences, and one of
Mm-hmm.
my co-speaker was product head at Marico. And she
Okay.
was, and the reason I bring is because that's an FMCG company. And she was explaining the process by which they build different brand lines like Beardos and a few more, just by taking customer first approach. And I was blown away. I always felt that the larger companies would probably not take this approach. And she was telling me that they they were listing their products on Amazon,
Mm-hmm.
and Amazon would give feedback to them. This is our customer reviews say, and these are typical customer reviews which we hear from competitors product of Marico. And based on these inputs, they created a different product line. And now they are standalone brands of 200 crore or 300 crore in the market. And that itself shows the power of building brands from grounds up, and also give you hint on where you should probably go for hints and inspiration.
Got it. This question is followed by the next question, that should building a user persona be a priority at an early age startup with under 500 customer?
Yeah, I mean, this is a part of a go-to-market strategy. Uh, if you don't want to name it user persona, you feel free to call it user cohorts or your ideal customer, whatever suits you. But it will this segregation of your prospective customer or existing customers will help you customize your growth strategies. So all it's not like one size fit all. You will have to drill deeper. Some of the customers will be discount seeker. You will have to solve in or highlight different aspects. Some of them would really want to get things faster because they have less time. So you will have to solve their problems in a different way. So yeah, it's important to have customer personas, or rather, I would say it's important to know your different type of customers.
Got it. So Ankit, we have quite some more questions. So what we can do is we can strictly stick to 30 seconds rule, wherein so that we can take up more questions. I can see 11 or 12 questions over there. Is it
Okay.
okay with you? Or
Sure. So yeah, I think you can pick probably 5 or 6 of them, and
okay,
then
fine. So let's do it that way. Okay, so maybe the people who are asking their second questions, we can skip that and we can take it offline. I can share the
sure.
questions with you, and once you share the answer, I'll share with them over email.
Yeah. Okay.
So Karthik wants to ask, how do you balance between privacy and personalization while building products?
How do I balance that? First of all, usually all organizations take explicit consent at the time of registration,
Yeah,
and usually legally we are safeguard ourselves that we will be using the data anonymously to improve the experience. And worldwide, that's the norm. Even the toughest law in Europe, where I work, follow the same strategy. So that's about, and users do have an option to opt out of it. But at the same time, we make sure that yeah, it's not crosses some certain ethical boundaries. So your data should be consumed only by you. Probably not should be shared anytime with partners or banks, which you can use in different way. So that's an ethical question, and a company's moral values question, then a growth question, I would say.
got it. Next, Praveen wants to ask you, who owns the responsibility for driving organic growth at Myntra, product or marketing?
I think I answered him. It's a collective responsibility, um, and yeah, I so that's what I can say. There's no need to take names, but yeah, it's a collective responsibility of marketing and product, and there are multiple initiatives they come together and solve that.
All right. What are the different variants for marketing strategy for early growth or product?
Oh,
Okay.
that's a very broad one. I mean, rapid experimentation, I would say, is one strategy which you should probably go and implement.
Just a sec. Got it. Now we have Saurabh asking, how should be the communication in these times? Should we leverage the aspect of fear?
I think A, you can use it to build confidence and trust. B, you can make sure that you are available at all times. So depending on the industry, it's very difficult for me to give a specific example. But for example, Zomato and Swiggy, they both came up very quickly with these terms like contactless deliveries. Zomato went ahead and said that we will have contactless dining as well, and they were very considerate and said that all the Zomato Gold programs would be extended so by X months.
Yeah,
So this is the line of communication which probably the users can take in the COVID situation. Be more empathetic to the user, trying to be as much as possible available to them, creating a long list of FAQs which people can read and consume easily.
Got it. Next question, and probably the second last, would be Sankalp wants to ask you, at an early age startup where the features are still being built, how does one balances between building them versus perfecting existing ones while also not being a bottleneck to the developers?
So I think you should not probably aim for perfection if you're early stage startup. It's very important to go and launch with MVP. There's no definition of a perfect product. Amazon is not perfect. Flipkart is not perfect. Myntra is not perfect. Amazon exists for 25 years. They still go down sometimes. Myntra 12 years now. So and we keep on improvising and working on it. So there is no uh, perfect product. Launch as early as possible so that your core flows or core proposition is understood by the customer. So instead of focusing time on, let's say, perfecting everything, focus on few journeys and they should be ready to launch. And then keep on adding additional flows to support the main flow. Even if they are not perfect, you should launch.
Got it. And probably this would be the last question for today. How do you incorporate empathy in your marketing messaging for pushing for product adoption, especially during the current times? Any B2B example that you can quote? Anubhav wants to ask this question.
Uh, so for example, I think one of the things which you can communicate right now is using uh, language which is like, we are always with you, we are available 24/7, um, even if required we can go and video conference to answer your questions, to support you. So these are the kind of messages which can create a differentiator for you, that where the customers would love to come to you and still adopt your B2B product. An example, other strategy could be going a freemium model. So for example, Vedantu and a couple of other companies made their content free for use during this COVID situation. And that's a nice gesture. It's easier for people to adopt and use their product. And Vedantu, for example, is seeing exponential growth for their product just because they have opened their content.
All right. So I guess that would be it for today. That those will be the questions that we'll be taking because we are running short of time. So first of all, thank you, Ankit, for being such a sport and answering all the questions and giving us your valuable time and sharing the content.
Thank you, guys. If
I
they're
hope you
still
enjoyed.
unanswered, you guys can reach me on
Yes,
LinkedIn or Twitter. I would be happy to answer.
perfect. I hope you enjoyed the sessions and the questions that were shot towards you. Uh,
Yeah.
Okay. And all the people who joined us today, thank you guys. I hope you guys are staying safe and doing productive each day, every day. Thanks for joining us today. What we will be doing as a practice that we follow, like in all the webinars, that if anyone wants to stick back for a networking session, we can stick back and we can introduce ourselves and talk about something if anyone is very much interested in doing that. Last time we had 14-15 people doing that, so we won't mind doing it once again. And apart from that, I'll be sharing across the uh, presentation that was shared by Ankit and the recording of this session as well over the email with you guys. So watch out for that as well. So thank you once again. Thanks, Ankit. And I hope you guys enjoyed the session. Take care and
Yes.
stay safe.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.